You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholic, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and a trunk, just like Jim. It's more to life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more to life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club, buy some bottles, impress them girls. It's more to life.
Fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast and Who Dat. And this evening, we're going to have some more main course for you. We're going to be going over the laundry list of injuries that the Saints are dealing with, and going over the Saints versus Carolina Panthers injury report for the game on Sunday at noon. So we'll go over that, and then we'll go over some hot takes and player of the games and game picks for this game against Carolina. But first thing I want to get into, I shouted them out on the last podcast. Starting to get that feeling. That the Pelicans, they're the only New Orleans Saints team that people can rely on. And that they're kind of getting on a roll, and it would be real exciting if they were able to advance in the in-season tournament, and then they come up with like the worst loss of the season, and the first time that the Los Angeles Lakers have beat a team by 40 points in a season since 2011. So yeah, I praised them. I shouted them out, the New Orleans Pelicans, and then they go on, and right after that, they go on to have like the worst performance of the season, and one of the worst performances that they've had in their history, in a game that was as important as it was, even though it's something that's just now been developed, the in-season tournament. But it would have meant a lot. I guarantee it would have meant a lot more to the New Orleans Pelicans if they somehow would have been able to win this tournament than the Los Angeles Lakers, who are like a storied franchise. They'll use the cup that they win in season tournament. The cup, they'll use that for an ashtray if they win it, compared to the Pelicans if they won it. Even if they'd have just won the semifinals and moved on to the final, hell, they'd have hung a banner for that. So pretty disappointing that the Pelicans didn't have a better showing than what they had. I was pretty much out on the game from the very start, like the first play of the game. LeBron James runs down the court and gets a layup, and then Herb Jones barely even touched him, and then he gets the and one, and they're up by 3 points just like that. And it's funny that the 3 points, the three was really a big thing in this game. And I say I was out after the first play, that they're already calling fouls on Herb Jones. They jumped out to a 3-point lead. That's not really when I was jumping off. But the other three I was talking about is I was really out on the game after LeBron James made like 4 3-pointers in a row, because I just knew at that point the Pelicans have no chance of winning if LeBron James is going to be hot like this. And it's not just on defense that they were bad, just no one on offense showed up either. Your leading scorer ended up being Trey Murphy the third, who was like, this was only his second game back from meniscus injury, and hell, no one even reached the 20-point mark. No one scored even 20 points in this game. So they just didn't show up at all, not on defense, not on offense, just as a whole, as a team. They just did not show up, and they got completely outclassed by the Los Angeles Lakers. So that's disappointing and depressing. Maybe I should hold off my praises for them after they literally won the in-season tournament, or they've literally won the NBA Finals because my praise and my backing seem to do no good at all. Seem to be negative, if anything. So we're off the Pelicans bandwagon for right now. We're still watching from a distance. I don't say I'm jumping off the bandwagon, but I won't be calling them out or praising them because I don't I think I'm bad luck sometimes when it comes to things like that. So that's the Pelicans. Let's get into this injury report that we've been talking about, that we were talking about earlier, about how it's so long and it's just that doesn't look like it's shaping up too well for the Saints to be very healthy come Sunday against the Carolina Panthers. But anyways, let's jump right into this. So can I get a menu? And so this is a long injury report. They don't have. It's kind of a weird injury report too, because they have like a bunch of people that like didn't practice all week and barely practice all week, but they're still like listed as questionable, even though they have only like 2 players that are like officially out with injuries. So let's get into it right now. So go over our Saints injury report first. So the first player on the list here, because this is a long list, is defensive end Isaiah Foskey, who he got hurt a while back, and it was disappointing because he just started looking like he was coming on a little bit, making some tackles for loss and forcing a fumble and things like that. And then of course he gets a quad injury, but he's still hurt. It's kind of surprising that they didn't put him on IR or a PUP or something. But he didn't practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and he is out. And the Saints say it would probably been pretty helpful if Isaiah Foskey would have came back with all the Saints issues at defensive end, and Cam Jordan's beat up, and you've lost Malcolm Roach, defensive tackle, and the run game hasn't been great. But alas, Isaiah Foskey, your rookie 2nd-round pick, isn't coming back just yet. All right, next player on the list, and this is probably the worst one of them all. This is probably be a big deciding factor on whether they win or lose. And it's crazy to think that this single player amounts to that much. That tells you a lot about how this season's gone and how other players haven't shown up and aren't playing up to their contract, and now they're dealing with injuries. So I guess you could use that as an excuse. But quarterback Taysom Hill dealing with a foot and a left hand injury, and he didn't practice Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. But even so, he's still listed as questionable. But I would be surprised if he played. Oh, I'd be a little surprised if he played just because of his age and the amount of beating that he's taken this season. But not having Taysom Hill in this game is a big issue. It's a big deal, because a lot of times this year when it looks like Saints can't move the ball, can't do anything on offense, like Taysom Hill would be your only spark, to get anything going, to just pick up a first down. He's been pretty much that lightning rod's spark that you need like all year. And not having him in this game, even though it's against the Carolina Panthers, who they're also down bad, not having Taysom could be a deciding factor in whether the Saints win this game or not. And then so that's a big will be a big loss if he doesn't play. All right, defensive end Cameron Jordan, who we were talking about earlier, he didn't practice like all last week, but then ended up playing anyways in kind of a limited role. But he's dealing with an ankle injury, who some think was too bad to have actually played on last week, but he was able to play through it. But he didn't practice Wednesday, but was limited Thursday, limited Friday, and listed as questionable. I expect him to play just because of his history, and that they said that he's better. He was actually able to practice in during the week, unlike last week. So I expect Cam Jordan to play, and they'll need him just with how the defensive line is struggling. They can't stop the run. They can't get a pass rush. So any little bit helps. And then running back Kendre Miller, still dealing with that ankle injury. Didn't practice Wednesday, didn't practice Thursday, didn't practice Friday, and he is listed as out. And Dennis Allen actually had a statement on Kendre Miller talking about how he thought he was progressing well with his injury, and then he kind of just hit an impasse, to what I guess is the healing process and the rehab just kind of hit a wall, I guess is what he was saying. But he said it wasn't due to a setback. So whatever that means, it looked like Kendre Miller was on pace to return, and then just all of a sudden he's not. I don't know. That's a little bit of a weird storyline. So he's out, and then you got wide receiver Rashid Shaheed, who's missed the last game and a half or so due to this thigh injury. But unlike Michael Thomas and Marshawn Lattimore, he wasn't put on IR, but he was dealing with a thigh injury and didn't practice Wednesday, didn't practice Thursday, didn't practice Friday. But somehow after all that, and already missing one game and missing a good portion of another game, he's somehow listed as questionable. But I would be surprised if he plays. And now here's the one that's ridiculous, and we kind of mentioned it in the last podcast, was about how it's kind of weird how he'll get hurt during the game, get knocked out of the game. They say he's got a concussion, they say he's got a rib, say he's got a shoulder injury, and then the next thing you know, he's practicing all week and ends up playing. And is he going to do this? I've almost lost count of how many times he's done this now. I guess this will be the third time that he's done this. This is the second concussion, third shoulder injury, first rib injury. But I'm talking about, you probably already know, you've been following Saints all season. You already know who I'm talking about. So quarterback Derek Carr, dealing with a concussion, a rib, a right shoulder, was limited. Let's see, hard to see. Yeah, he was limited Wednesday, limited Thursday, and he was full practice on Friday, and is listed as questionable. And they say he has like one more step to pass the concussion protocol. That's just wild to me. Been knocked out of 3-4 games, got concussed twice, re-aggravated the right shoulder, throwing shoulder 3 times, and still is listed as questionable. And honestly, won't be surprised if he plays, even though I just don't understand it. They talk about they've done this like last 3 weeks or so. They've done this where players get a concussion and then they magically pass concussion protocol and play the next week, even though from recent history that I've followed, usually if you get a concussion, that means you're missing a game. But somehow the Saints have found a way around that, and I'm not overly I'm not a huge backer of that. I think if someone gets a concussion in a game and gets shook up in a game, or even actually knocked out in a game, then they should take the week off. All right, so on to the next player here. We have tight end Juwan Johnson. He's dealing with a quad, and he was limited Wednesday, limited Thursday, limited Friday, and was listed as questionable. I would expect him to play. He already missed quite a few games, and now he's back. But maybe just monitoring him. And then we have center Eric McCoy, dealing with a shoulder injury. He was limited Wednesday, full Thursday, full Friday, and has no game status or designation, so he's going to play. And then you have Andres Pete, tackle, guard. He's been the left tackle those last few games, dealing with the shoulder injury as well. He was limited Wednesday, limited Thursday, and then was full on Friday. No game status, no game time designation, so he should play. And then Ryan Ramczyk, tackle, knee. He was limited Wednesday, full Thursday and Friday, no game time status or designation. And then Pete Warner was a linebacker, Pete Warner, who missed last week with a shoulder and an oblique injury, but he was limited Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and listed as questionable. So I would imagine there's a good chance he plays. I mean, you have kicker Blake Groupie dealing with a right groin injury, which that he was dealing with that last week and missed some practice and was listed questionable. Was limited in practice and still ended up playing, but he was full Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and is listed as questionable. So I would assume he's going to play. And then wide receiver Chris Olave, who was like Derek Carr last week, was dealing with a concussion, but ended up playing and having one of his better games of the season. You know, he had 100 plus receiving yards off of like 5 catches in that game. But he's not. It's not listed as a concussion for this injury. This is a wide receiver, Chris Olave. He's dealing with the flu, is what they're saying. So they're saying illness, and it must have not hit him until Thursday because he practiced on Wednesday. It wasn't listed on the injury report, but then didn't practice Thursday, didn't practice Friday, and is listed as questionable. But Dennis Allen said that it's a good chance that he plays. You know, he'll get some more work in later this evening on Friday when all the other players are out of the facility. You know, so he doesn't get anyone else sick. So it sounds like he'll play, but he just didn't practice because they didn't want him around any of the other players. And then we have guard Nick Salvadari dealing with the shoulder injury. Must have got it in practice because he wasn't on the injury report Wednesday or Thursday, but then he still was able to practice full on Friday, and he's listed as questionable. So majority of these players, even though they're listed as questionable, probably play. The main ones that I would be surprised if they do, definitely Rashid Shaheed. Obviously, Kendra Miller is out, and Isaiah Foskey is out, and then really out of the remaining ones, the only one that really concerns me, and I think probably won't end up playing, is Taysom Hill, and that's a big deal, you know. When the Saints offenses look completely dead in the water, they can always rely on a quarterback keeper by Taysom Hill to pick up 10 yards and a first down. Not having that this week could be very detrimental to their chance to win a game that should be pretty much a gimme. These next 3 games the Saints have, I mean, they should go on a 3-game winning streak, but I don't know if Dennis Allen's ever won 3 games in a row in his career. So I see that as unlikely. All right. Next thing here is going over Carolina's injury report, and it's just as long, but I don't think the players that they have listed, I don't think they have as many that are actually out or didn't practice during the week, and I don't think any of them that are out. I think they only have one big time player that's out, and his story kind of goes back to what Derek Carr and Chris Olave are dealing with. So this will be fun to talk about this when I get to it. All right, so we got on the list they have a cornerback Troy Hill, and he was listed as ankle / not injury related rest, and he didn't practice Wednesday, which probably was more for rest than anything. Maybe the ankle was bothering him a little bit. He was limited on Thursday, limited on Friday, no game status. And then they have their offensive tackle, Taylor Moton. He was dealing with a knee slash not injury related rest, didn't practice Wednesday, and then was limited Thursday and full on Friday, no game time designation. And then defensive end, Deshaun Williams, knee. He didn't practice Wednesday, didn't practice Thursday, didn't practice Friday, and he is out. He's out. He's one of the few players that is officially listed as out. And then safety, our boy, Saints legend Von Bell, dealing with a shoulder injury and is limited. Was limited on Wednesday, limited on Thursday, and was full on Friday and has no game time designation. And before I get too far ahead of myself, these are players that didn't show up on this injury report because they got put on IR instead. So we're missing Malcolm Roach, who went on IR for a knee, I think, and then we're missing Marcus May, who went on IR for I think a shoulder injury. So both of those, they're pretty, I would imagine, because they're going on IR this late in the season. There's only 5 games left. I would be surprised that they're done. I would imagine for the regular season at least, if somehow some miracle the Saints make the playoffs and maybe they come back after 5 games or so. But they're going to miss the next 4, and there's only 5 left. So I don't see what even the point would be for them to come back for the season finale unless it's a win and you're in playoff game. But the reason I wanted to bring that up and not before I get too far ahead of myself on that is want to talk about Marcus May a little bit. I was just talking about him last week, I think, talking about how I think that was a horrible signing and they'd have been much better off paying a little more and keeping Marcus Williams instead. And that's a perfect example of it here. I'm going over these Panther injury report, and Von Bell pops up as a player that the Saints moved on from. That they didn't move on from him because of Marcus Williams, but they moved on from him because Malcolm Jenkins came back. And those 2 seasons that Malcolm Jenkins played, he was awesome. He was still playing at a very high level. So I don't I'm not too going to be too hard on the Saints for that move, but moving on from Marcus Williams probably wasn't the best move in the world because you move on from Marcus Williams, who I understand got paid a little bit more and a couple more years from the Baltimore Ravens, but you replace him with a player that was drafted in the same draft, 2017 draft, but was like 3 or 4 years older. So Marcus Williams going to the Baltimore Ravens was like 25, and then you're picking up Marcus May, who came, like I said, they both were drafted in 2017, but Marcus May, must have been 23, 24 years old when he was drafted because he was 29 when the Saints signed him, coming off of an Achilles injury with a pending DUI case. That just doesn't make sense. That's like one of the stupidest signings that they've had. And since he's gotten here, every once in a while, I give him credit. He forces a fumble or he gets an interception, but he also gets made look like a clown on missing some bad tackles. And now he's just always injury prone. So he's only played a full season since he's been here with the Saints because he played in 10 games last year and he's played in 7 this year. So this may be the worst free agent safety signing that the Saints have had since the Saints have had since Jerry's Bird signing. And this is very similar to it in regards to they moved on from better players to upgrade and free agency. I don't even know if they thought that Marcus Williams or Marcus May was going to be an upgrade or just as good, but that's what they thought. And back in 2014, when they moved on from Roman Harper, they moved on from Malcolm Jenkins, and then signed like the highest paid free agent safety in NFL history in Jerry's Bird, and then obviously Marcus Williams or Malcolm Jenkins ended up going on and being fringe Hall of Fame safety career with the Philadelphia Eagles. He was like a team captain for them and their Super Bowl team, championship winning team, and he went on to be like a Pro Bowler. Yeah, the Saints messed up big time on the Malcolm Jenkins one, and then they kind of messed up even though I understand moving on from Roman Harper a little bit more because he was 30 years old and he's already been a pretty long history of struggling in coverage. But now, hell, he goes onto the Carolina Panthers, and next thing you know, hell, he's got 4 interceptions in the 24-14 season. He actually came down with 4 interceptions, and then he was even on the team that helped the Carolina Panthers get to Super Bowl even. So I look at this as very similar. You sign a Marcus May, who's got tons of red flags. You sign him and you let Marcus Williams walk. Man, just a bad move there. Not a great move. Was never a huge fan of it, mainly because you're signing a player for free agents. He was like what 3 million, 20 or 3 years, 29 million or something, and comes in and he's already dealing rehabbing an Achilles injury and pending DUI case. And the age, it's just horrible, horrible signing. I could probably talk about that all day. Jesus, what a horrible signing that was. Anyways, so Von Bell, who I would love to have right now, I would definitely trade him in over over Marcus May. I think Von Bell got an interception in the first game against the Panthers this year, but he's dealing with a shoulder injury, was limited Wednesday, Thursday, and then was full on Friday, no game status designation. And then center Bradley Bozeman, ankle. He's a starter for the Panthers, but he was limited Wednesday, limited Thursday, but was full on Friday and listed as questionable. So I expect him to play. And then another safety that I would definitely take over Marcus May, Jeremy Chin. He's dealing with a quad as well, and he was limited Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but has no game time designation or anything. And then often outside linebacker Yaturi Gross Matos dealing with a hamstring. He was limited Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and is questionable. And then Marcus Hayes Sr., another outside linebacker dealing with a back injury. He was limited Wednesday, Thursday, and then was full on Friday, and he is questionable. And then cornerback J.C. Horn. So I don't know if this will be his first game back or what, but he was hurt and didn't play in the game against the Saints, even though the Saints didn't take advantage of that at all. It's not like he missed the game and then Derek Carr ended up throwing a party on the Carolina Panthers or anything, but it looks like he'll be back for this game. So that's the Panthers defense should be strong and have the majority of its starters. So cornerback J.C. Horn, hamstring. He was limited Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but it has no game status or designation. And then this is the one I was wanting to talk about. This all circles back around, and you should really kind of squint your eye a little bit, raise an eyebrow a little bit about how the Saints are handling concussions. So tight end Hayden Hurst has a concussion, and he was limited Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but is listed as out. But the thing that makes this a concerning story is the reason that Hayden Hurst was limited, but is still out. Is I imagine he's not able to pass concussion protocol because I heard there was a story earlier this week that he was dealing with like post-concussion amnesia. So that's pretty serious thing, that you can't remember, if you can't remember what day it is or how old you are or what kind of events are going on in the world, or you think that it's, I don't know, maybe he thought that it was week 10 when it was week 12, 13 or something. I don't know. But yeah, post concussion amnesia, that's bad. So that the Saints just have a player get concussed and they play it the next week like it's nothing makes you shake your head and raise an eyebrow a little bit. So hopefully Hayden Hurst will be okay. Obviously, he's going to miss this game, but yeah, I hope he ends up being all right, because man, you don't want to hear nothing like that when it comes to any kind of brain injury or anything. All right, on to more tight ends. They got some injuries at tight ends. We got Steven Sullivan dealing with a shoulder injury, and he was limited Wednesday, Thursday, and then was full on Friday, and he's listed as questionable. I imagine he plays. They got a lot of players that are listed as questionable, even though they practiced all week and were full on Friday. And then we have their other tight end. All three tight ends are a little shook up. Tommy Trimble, hip, he was limited Wednesday, Thursday, and then was full on Friday and is questionable. And then offensive lineman Amari Barrow, ankle, was full Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and has no game time designation. So there's a few players here in there. Like really looks like the only real starter that the Panthers are going to be missing is Hayden Hurst. So I would, if I was judging these injury reports and judging the teams just going off of health, I would say that the Panthers are, can't say that they're more talented or anything, but as we stand right now, I would say and assume that they're more healthy at least. So that's one thing that they definitely have a one up on the Saints going into Sunday's game. All right, so that's the injury report. Just seems to get uglier and uglier as the weeks go on, and hell, I almost completely glanced over, just kind of skimmed over the more players added to the IR. They already have Peyton Turner, who's been on there pretty much all season. Peyton Turner, let's see, Peyton Turner, Michael Thomas, Marshawn Lattimore, let's see, Marcus May, and Malcolm Roach are all on IR. So those are all players that would either start or get significant playing time that are just out. And then you have a couple more starters that are probably going to miss this game. So you got definitely a little more than a handful of Saints starters that aren't going to play in this game against the Panthers. But anyways, let's move on from the injury report. Let's talk about like our player of the game and hot take and let's see here, hot take and then game picks and scores. So I want to look up this player real quick, see kind of what he's already been doing this season. He's already having a good season out of a season that hasn't been good, and some players definitely underachieving this year, but he's definitely one of the few that has been good. So the player I'm talking about that I think will be the player of the game for this game coming up is, there hadn't been really too many players on this team, especially on defense, that have played good, or you could say that they're the player of the game. I think you maybe say that 2 weeks ago when the Saints played the Falcons. Tyrann Mathieu had 2 interceptions, and then a little more than a month ago, Paulson Adebo had he had 2 interceptions and a forced fumble, had 3 turnovers in one game. But since Saints have been playing bad, there's been kind of a lot of some flack and hate towards the defense, saying that they're getting old. Demario Davis is washed, Cam Jordan's washed, Marcus May is injury prone and washed. So there's been quite a bit of that, and out of all those players, the older players, I would say that there's one that you couldn't say is washed. And so I'm going to pick a defensive player this time around. Maybe one of the only few times that I have, but I'm picking Tyrann Mathieu to be the player of this game. I want to look back here, see he didn't get an interception in the first game against Bryce Young. But I'm going with Tyrann Mathieu. He's one of the few older veteran players on the defense that you haven't seen any like drop off from him. So he's played in all 12 games this season. Has 3 interceptions for 48 return yards. One of them was returned for a touchdown, and it was a long of 26. He has 6 pass deflections, 49 total tackles, 32 solo, 17 assists, and then he has this 1 quarterback hit. But I'm picking Tyrann Mathieu to continue, playing at a high level, even though he's older. He's 31 years old. Let's see, yeah, 31 years old. But I'm picking Tyrann Mathieu. I think he's going to get an interception or off of Bryce Young or something like that. Or just a fumble, or just be about the only respectable elder statesman on that defense that still is playing up to snuff. So the Tyrann Mathieu will be my player of the game. And then on to a hot take. This is a hot take that I'm not overly proud of here. This is going to be, I guess involves Derek Carr, who, he was, this is what, his 3rd, 4th time now getting knocked out of a game and then being perfectly fine in practice. It's got people kind of questioning his toughness or his motive or his drive to finish out tough games, even though all the hits that you've seen him take and get injured on, he's gotten absolutely obliterated. I mean, but I'm this is kind of a hot take, have to see how it plays out. But I think Derek Carr, he's going to play in this game. He's going to play in this game. He's going to start it at least. But that's the thing. That's the thing where I get to where it gets a little spicy here. So he's going to play in this game. He's going to start, but he's going to get knocked out of it again. Whether it's a concussion or rolling around like the last couple times he's gotten hit and hurt, he's rolling on the ground, holding his ribs, even though it's a head injury or a shoulder injury. But yeah, that's what's going to happen in this game. It's going to be a little ridiculous and a little frustrating. But maybe the Saints will be able to overcome it. So Derek Carr, even though he's had his 2nd concussion in like a month and has missed quite a bit of time in practice, even though he practiced all this week, but he's took hits on that injured shoulder already. He's got a new rib injury. Even because of all that, he's listed as, even though all that, he's just listed as questionable. He's going to play in this game, but he's going to get knocked out again. And I guess we can even add to it. The Saints, the game will be really close, when he gets knocked out again. So it'll be just like all these other times. The game will be within like a 1-score lead when he gets knocked out. And I don't know if the Saints will be leading at the time or not, but one where it'll be a 1-score lead either for the Panthers or the Saints. It'll be a close game and he'll get knocked out again I think this will be the 4th time. So that's my hot take. And then my pick for this game, I don't see the Saints having another offensive explosion like they did against Detroit, even though they were horrible in the first quarter, but then they won the majority, the rest of the game, by scoring 28 points. But hard to pick how many points really I think the Saints are going to score in this game, just because don't 100% know who the quarterback is going to be. Like it'd be all bets are off if I hear that Jameis Winston or Jake Haener is starting. Be all bets off on how many points I think they're going to score. So not overly sure kind of where I want to go with the points. I think I'll probably go lower scoring game, but I mean the Panthers are what? They're 1-12 or 1-11 or something. Like it'd be pretty sad sap if the Saints can't get a win over them, even though they're missing some of their best players. And the first game against the Panthers wasn't easy. They only won it 20-17, and the Panthers were trying to come back and score late in that game. But I think it'll be funny, and I think it'll be really interesting to see how things play out if the Saints are able to put together like a 2-game winning streak or a 3-game winning streak, with their next opponents being the Panthers, the Giants, and the Rams. So I'm picking the Saints to win this, but I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Still, I think this will be another game where the Saints don't score 21 points or more. So I'm picking the Saints to win this game over the Panthers, and this will be their second home game in a row. It's like the first time all year that they've actually had home games in a row. So they'll have this one, and then they'll have the game against the Giants as well. So that's the only time all year. This is the only time all year that the Saints have had home games, multiple home games in a row, and it's just this 3-game stretch. That's really weird. Talking earlier in the season when the schedule came out, I was not a huge fan of it. So the Saints will win this, and I think they're going to win this game. The Panthers 17-13. Like I was saying, they're not gonna score 21 points or more. So that'll be so that's the player of the game, Tyrann Mathieu. I think he'll come down with an interception or a fumble recovery or something like that, and make him the player of the game. And then hot take, Derek Carr. He's Iron Man when the heat's not on him, but when the heat gets on him, he starts melting. So I've got Derek Carr. He's gonna be perfectly fine and start this game. You know, he's the number one quarterback, gonna start, even though he's dealing with concussion and shoulder and rib injury. But he's gonna start this game, and then it's gonna still be close. And just like all the other games he's gotten knocked out of, he's gonna when the pressure's on, he's gonna get hurt and knocked out of this game again. And then game pick, I'm picking the Saints to win in a low-scoring game. I'm picking them to beat the Panthers 17-13. So that's about all I have for you this evening. This game, I have more. I think some of the previous games I said that I just didn't feel like overly excited about how they were going to go, you know, because I felt it was a good chance that a loss was on the way. And so I have a little more intrigue for this game, you know, because the Saints should beat this game, you know, or it should be at least competitive. I would hope and think that this is going to be one of the few games this season where the Saints don't get down in a 10-point plus hole and then are having to battle back the entire game. So that's why I have a little more intrigue. You know, I can't say that I'm excited for this game, but I'm also not saying that I'm negative or think that they have no chance of winning. So I'm intrigued by this, and I'm intrigued how the rest of the NFC South will play out. It would be nice if they won this game and everyone else lost, because then you'd be right back in the thick of things. So that's it. That's all I have for you this evening. So who dat? And can I get a check, please?